All right, schedule builders, especially for you new schedule builders. This is a quick overview on how to get to PowerScheduler and kind of the breakdown of where some of the different links and options are. So once you log in, many of you have access to different buildings depending on your role and what kids travel to your building or not. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you are in your building before you start going into PowerScheduler to make changes for other people's buildings. What you're going to do is you're going to scroll down after you log in and you're going to go to PowerScheduler under the applications link. Once you do that, that brings you into the main page. You can still see you're in Discovery Middle, but here we've got our scheduling year is set at 1920. You obviously want that to be the next school year. If it says the year you're currently in, that means my team has not set up the scenario yet. You should stop doing work because you're doing fake work at that point. So make sure the scheduling year is correct. When you look at it, my team sets it up. I almost don't think you will ever start before my team starts setting that up, so you should be fine. A couple things you see right on this page. You see that the build is the 2019-2020 build. This in parentheses is your build ID. That is an internal PowerSchool ID that tells us this is the build for Discovery Middle School in 1920. Tells us the catalog ID. That's, of course, catalog you're using for DMS. This number is going to be different for every building. This number is going to be different for every building. If you call us and ask you to help mass set something, odds are we need the build ID and the catalog ID, or one or the other. So this is where you can find those. There is a Google sheet that has that information as well. But my team, when we're doing work, are not necessarily in PowerScheduler to do something for you, and we might not have access to that Google Drive at any given time. So that is something you want to be aware of. From there, you have all of your scheduling option things you can click on are over here on the left, right? So you've got a requesting group or a requesting section. That's how you set up course groups. In other words, if I tell kids in the request process, pick your elective for sixth grade, you're going to have a course group of all sixth grade electives that they choose from. If you're going to be at a high school, well, high school is a bad example at this point, but let's say middle school is going to say we're going to do challenge by choice. Here are all your English classes you can choose from. You choose regular, you can choose advanced, right? You put them in there as a course group, and you set your down here your screen set up where they go to actually put their requests in. When they click on to pick their English class, it's only going to be those choices you gave them. High schools are going to be a little bit different this year, probably, based on conversations we've had. Scheduling setup section, right? This is getting ready to schedule, right? You don't really need to worry about scenarios. That's really this page. It's going to look a little different if you click on that link, but it's really this page. You don't need to do auto scheduler setup. My team's taking care of that. You will be messing with course catalogs. This little red icon tells you there's a problem. I will tell you right now, I'm not going to go into too many details. That red icon is on everybody's section because we haven't made the 1920 school year on the live side of PowerSchool yet. So we have to mark courses available to your schools by year. Since 1920 doesn't exist, currently PowerScheduler doesn't think any of these courses are available to your building. So that red triangle means, hey, there's a problem. You have something that you have marked to schedule that isn't available to your building. That red triangle should go away as soon as we make 1920, but then it'll come back as soon as we start unchecking boxes for classes that the district has said, hey, we're no longer going to offer this. Years and terms, my team takes care of. Periods, my team takes care of with input from you. Same with days. We don't do anything with buildings because we don't have multi-building campuses that would affect our schedule building. We send kids different places, but that wouldn't be this. Constraints, there'll be a whole section on constraints. Constraints gets into pre-schedule constraints. So what classes have to meet now, and we're gonna go ahead and just build them. Who's off fifth hour? Who our part-time teachers are. There's different constraints that we'll look at. My philosophy on constraints is the fewer the better. Departments. So there are reasons departments can come in handy in a build. It depends on what you're doing. I don't know if the middle schools use it or not, but you can make rooms available to a department only. Well, you have to have the department has to exist for you to tell room 100 that room 100 is only for the science department, and then you have to mark your teachers being in the science department. You have to mark the courses being in the science department. So departments are useful for some things. If you're not using departments at your building, it's not something you have to use. Facilities, same thing. A kitchen at a high school is a kitchen facility. The only thing that's going to be good in that room is a cooking class, and you don't want a cooking class in a chemistry room. So you will be able to say, hey, I'm going to get the room wrong, room 104 at Liberty High School is a kitchen facility. All these cooking classes require a kitchen facility, and that'll make sure that those courses get placed in the right spot. So that's where you mark facilities. Houses, we don't really use houses. The idea behind this is we've got 2,000 kids. These 500 are in the blue house. These 500 are in the gray house, whatever. And you would assign teachers to houses. We don't really use that. Section types is one we do use. This is where we have a course called Liberty Chorale, but we operate it as a men's chorale and a women's chorale. So you can make a men's section type and a women's section type. You might have, I'm going to make this up, you might have a 9th grade Liberty Chorale and a 12th grade Liberty Chorale. That's a bad example, but section types allow you to do that, to make up one course function differently and load kids into different sections. So that's where you make what the section types are. Teams, I'm not an expert on teams, but you do team stuff here. Programs we've never really used either, so that's one I'll have to dig into. But those are kind of some scheduling setup options. Resources, right? What resources do you have in a schedule build? Well, you have courses, obviously. Courses are resources, things that we're going to try and build. Rooms, where can courses be built? What are specific about our rooms? So these are the courses your school's offering, and this is where you go to set them up, whether it's year long, whether it's semester long, whatever. You set up courses here for how they're going to build. Rooms, you create rooms or remove rooms and set up room parameters. You go to resources rooms. Students, this is where you go to mark a student as changing their next school indicator if that's appropriate. It's where you go to make changes to their course requests if that's appropriate. It's where you go to work with a student and see their schedules. Teachers, also, teachers is where you go to work with teachers to set their scheduling preferences, to give them teacher assignments, to look at what their schedule ended up being. This is where you check those things under resources. Processing, course rank, building the course rank, you do right. That's the last thing you do right before you build a master schedule. This is gonna, that's where you go for that. This is where you go to do build validates and just master schedule builds. The Q option is where you go to see the results of a build, validate, or a build. Load is after you've built a master schedule. This is where you go to load students into the schedule. The Q is how you see your results and get ready to do your imports. We don't do automated study halls. You never commit. Only my team does the commit. We do the commit the day we do the end of year process. We should have this set so if you actually did click commit, it would tell you have insufficient privileges. But still, don't click on commit. That's not the same as saying, hey, we're committing to this being our master schedule. When you make the decision that, hey, we're done building, this is our schedule, you can say, yes, this is what we're doing moving forward. That has nothing to do with this commit process. That commit process is totally different. Schedule. If you click on master schedule, you can see the schedule that you have built. Visual scheduler, there's some buildings that might use that, but that's how you can look at a visual representation of the schedule and slide some things around based on how complex our schedules are. I don't know how handy that comes in for us. And then sections, you can look at different sections that exist. One thing to know, if you come into sections and you click on a class and you click on new section and you do any of that prior to a build, it gets erased in a build and an import. You do not go to sections to make sections until after you're done doing builds. You will lose all the work you do in here when you do the build process and import a build. All this goes away. If you want to make a section prior to the build process, that's under constraints, pre-schedule constraints. We'll look at all that later. Okay, so this is more after your build. All right, we're done building. What's everything look like? And oops, we're going to go ahead and make a new section because we have the staff to do it, and we're done building. I'll make it there. You've got some tools, right? You got a checklist. We don't really use that. We give you that process outline instead. The engine download, I've got a video on that. Functions is a big thing that I do want to focus on. And then down here is reports. Reports helps you figure out what you need to come up here and change, right? So there's a course list report, there's a room list report, there's a students report, there's teachers reports, there's reports you can run. But that's kind of a breakdown on your navigation options over here on the left-hand side of PowerScheduler.